Chapter 3, Mesmia. After the unusual pair rode towards Mesmia throughout the night without stopping, they finally reached their destination. The morning brought a frigid breeze across the plains on the outskirts of the city. Besti and Gelivana scouted the city from afar. Gelivana had never been this far from the moon forest. There was a primal unease at the sight of so much stone and metal. These humans are so far removed from nature. That discomfort was soon eclipsed, however, beneath a rage-fueled desire to rescue Beliath. Gora emerged from the skies to greet them. Besti studied him curiously. Gora bowed his head gracefully and said, "Gora Lamus, at your service." Besti bowed in return and asked, "What's it like to be a talking owl?" "What's it like to be a talking dwarf?" "Fair enough." The city in front of them was the largest they'd ever seen. Outside of the intimidating gates stood a row of armed guards, slowly accepting a long line of travelers waiting to get into the city. Gelivana spotted the soldiers from Lostmoor, waiting in the line while carrying Beliath as their prisoner atop one of the horses. "He is there!" Gelivana's spirit raged. Without any hesitation, she began walking towards the Lostmoor guards. Her world churned beneath her with each step. Besti attempted to pull her out of it. He called out in a soft voice, "Hold on, you'll attract too much attention." Gelivana ignored Besti's warning and marched forth. Besti smacked his own forehead before turning to Gora and asking, "Does she ever listen?" Gora replied, "Yes, once, I believe." Just before Gelivana reached the soldiers in line, a firm hand latched onto her cloak and pulled her into the crowded line. A familiar voice whispered, "Don't. You'll make the same mistake again and ruin any chance of rescuing him." Gelivana looked up to find Alaketh holding a firm grasp on her cloak. Kala was waiting patiently beside him. Gelivana ripped her cloak out of his hands in a show of fury. "What would you have me do? They are about to enter the city. He will be lost to me." Alaketh replied, "He won't. I'm going to intercept him before they take him to the Inquisitor. If you'll just follow my lead this time, we won't get another chance." "We want to help, I promise," Kala assured. Gelivana was not so eager to fall in line with outsiders, but what choice did she have but to play along? For now. She gave a hesitant nod and slowly followed the line with them. When they reached the front of the line, the city guard's eyes were drawn to Alaketh. "Sir?" Gelivana's heart hammered against her ribs while her mind raced. "Alaketh knows these guards." Alaketh responded to the soldiers, "Stay on guard, gentlemen. There are dangers afoot." "Yes, sir." Alaketh then recited a slogan to them, "Dream deep, awaken true," and saluted them by bringing his pointer finger up to his right temple. The guards mimicked the salute before stepping out of the way. "You may enter the city." Gelivana's next step hovered for a moment as she considered going in. This could be a trap, but then again, Alaketh could have said something to the guards. "Be patient. Beliath needs you." She proceeded into the city. Inside, the city's streets were a labyrinth of stone-paved alleys and bustling markets. Bronze braziers crackled with fire to provide citizens with warmth against the frigid dawn. Preachers lined the markets and their pockets, while speaking to crowds of a god of dreams, and the struggles that humanity must face to one day break free from the waking world. At the city's center, a grand temple rose above the surrounding buildings. The group dashed into a quiet alley. Gelivana turned to Alaketh and furiously said, "At the gate, they knew you. You are working with this blight?" Alaketh replied, "Well, there's an explanation for that. One you must simply accept if you want to rescue your boy." "What is it?" "I'm a spy." "Of course you are. And I should trust a spy?" "I'm sorry, but it's too late for any alternative. We are in enemy territory. You don't know your enemy, nor do you know where he's been taken." Galavanna, frustrated to have to surrender to these truths, took a deep breath and thought of Beliath again. "Lead, then." Alaketh, feeling he could now trust Galavanna not to raise any more alarm, replied, "Good. Now he's going to have to wait in a cell before they take him to the head Inquisitor. If he reaches the Inquisitor, then it will be out of my hands. Let's make our way to the cells." Through the city's streets, Alaketh led Galavanna and Kala into a section with more heavily guarded areas and suspect buildings, where muffled screams and groans escaped into the streets. "This one. Wait here," Alaketh directed. The guards from Lostmoor walked out of the building, but they no longer had Beliath in tow. The party hid behind a corner, waiting for them to leave. As soon as they were gone, Alaketh led the party into the building to find a hall filled with prison cells. Sitting at a desk was a hulk of a man with a sword leaning on the wall behind him, running his fingers over a sheet of paper with a list of names. Alaketh approached and said, "Dawn, did I just see a new prisoner arrive from Lostmoor?" Dorn replied, "What of it?" "I'd like to inspect him." Dorn, looking down at his list, said, "What do I care?" Alaketh proceeded down the hall to find Beliath sitting in a damp cell. He was trembling. Years of protection had been shattered in a heartbeat as he was torn from his only family once again. Alaketh whispered to Beliath, "Hold on, I'm getting you out of here." He walked back to Dorn and declared in a firm voice, "I'll take this one. I think the Inquisitor will want to see him and confirm my suspicions." Galavanna began to tense up again. Dorn looked up from his list and asked, "What suspicions? Did we finally find the boy?" "No, precisely the opposite. That we've been chasing shadows. How many more innocent farm boys are we going to haul in from these lands, only to alienate the very people we need on our side?" All right, didn't mean to pry. Go on." Dorn tossed a ring of keys to Alaketh. Alaketh unlocked Beliath's cell and murmured, "Come on, boy." The party, with Beliath finally by their side, left the building and began making their way back to the city gate. Galavanna pulled Beliath close as they walked. "Don't leave my side." Alaketh's eyes widened in alarm as a new figure emerged in the city streets. It was the Inquisitor, walking directly towards them. A dark silhouette in black, rigid leather, his hair pushed back, and an utter look of detest in his eyes. A pin with the Dreamer's swirl symbol was neatly fastened to his coat, encased in gold. A slew of Dreamer soldiers loomed in his shadow. Alaketh, attempting to remain poised, said, "Keep walking, no matter what." As the Inquisitor walked past, Alaketh simply nodded and said, "Inquisitor Cepheus." The moment stretched into an eternity before Cepheus made a slight grunt of acknowledgement towards Alaketh, and then continued his arrogant march past the party and into the prison building they had just come from. A wave of relief washed over the party. Alaketh wasted no time. "Hurry, before he realizes we took the boy." They desperately rushed to find an exit out of the city. They soon found themselves attempting to cross through an impossibly dense crowd in the city's main square, effectively blocking their escape. A chorus of shouting assaulted their ears. The crowd, a writhing mass of sweat and ignorance, seemed to be channeling their life's miseries towards something in front. Meanwhile, the party attempted to push through, only to find themselves further trapped in the center of the crowd. "Don't let go of my hand," Galavanna whispered to Beliath. The crowd's rumbles came to a sudden halt as a lone, sinister voice captured them. "This man!" In front of the crowd stood a cruel-looking man addressing the crowd. He wore a dark cape and held a strange golden relic over a kneeling figure wrapped in tight chains. "Is doomed to die." The crowd erupted in applause before dying down again. "He's a Dawnkeeper spy, and he's going to die right here in Mesmia." "In our god's name!" The captive whimpered, his eyes wide with terror as the cruel man focused his power. From the relic in his hand, an otherworldly energy pulsed, a swirling vortex of teal and orange. It solidified into a shimmering portal that now hovered menacingly above the captive's head. The cruel man stepped back, his face contorted. Beliath held his breath, a cold dread slithering down his spine. Suddenly, the cruel man charged. With a feral screech, he launched himself at the captive and disappeared in a flash of light as he plunged through the portal. The portal flickered, then winked out of existence, leaving behind an unsettling emptiness. The captive was left behind untouched. His eyes suddenly turned white. He began to convulse on the cold city street, a nightmarish scene contrasting the cheering crowd. Beliath and Gelivana could not stand for this. How could anyone cheer for such cruelty? Beliath stared into the convulsing man's eyes. The longer he stared, the more he began to feel a tug at his very essence. What happened next would plague Beliath's thoughts for days to come. Beliath's eyes suddenly went white, and then he collapsed. Gelivana caught his body before it hit the ground, while his mind was transported elsewhere. Darkness. And then a new world. Beliath regained his vision to find himself in new surroundings, a dreamy red landscape with thin, moving walls. The floor beneath him was cloudy and soft. Cries and maniacal laughter echoed through the mismatched corridors, twisting and turning with no apparent logic. Images flickered on either side, fading in and out of view. Beliath trembled once more. He sought to figure out where he was. The images. They appeared to be a kaleidoscope of the captive man's memories. So, this is his mind, Beliath thought. Desperate for a way out, he cautiously ventured deeper. The corridor stretched on endlessly, a labyrinth of forgotten moments and buried emotions. A scream erupted from a nearby wall, coalescing into a scene of a young boy cowering from a furious father. Beliath watched the scene play out. Is this how fathers treat their sons? Suddenly, the father figure materialized into an ethereal form and warped into a space in front of Beliath's path. The ghastly visage stood there, expressionless. "What do you want?" Beliath asked. The figure then let out a hellish shriek and lunged at Beliath with unnatural speed. Beliath found himself locked in a struggle against a powerful, paranormal grasp. Gelivana's training kicked in on instinct. He flipped the spectral form over his shoulder, sending it to the ground. With a surge of adrenaline-fueled defiance, Beliath launched his foot against its head. The memory quickly dissolved into a wispy smoke. Beliath stood still, the weight of his actions crushing him. He'd never taken a life before. Even if it was a mere memory, a fragment of another soul, what have I done? A wave of nausea washed over him. Could this have harmed the captive man in the real world? No, it must have been nothing more than an illusion. Then a distinct voice came into earshot. It was the cruel man's voice. Beliath sprinted towards the sound, navigating the twisting paths to find the cruel man holding the same relic from before, above the captive's head. The captive, now oddly well-dressed in this alternate world, was still on his knees begging for his life. The cruel man began channeling a bright magic from the relic towards the man's head. Beliath's voice despaired through the dreamscape. "Don't!" A blinding light erupted from the cruel man's relic, engulfing the captive's head. Beliath watched in horror as the man's form dissolved into wisps of smoke. Beliath's gut wrenched as he understood the reality of what had just happened. A prisoner of war had just been executed from within his own mind. The cruel man hadn't even yet noticed Beliath. With the execution completed, his head snapped up to Beliath. His eyes, wide with confusion, scanned Beliath up and down. Before the cruel man could say anything, the dreamy world seemed to dissolve out of existence. Beliath opened his eyes to find himself lying on the city floor in Gelivana's arms. The surrounding crowd roared in his ears, a jarring contrast to the silent dreamscape he'd just left. Gelivana lay a gentle hand on Beliath's forehead. "Are you all right, child?" Beliath was momentarily relieved to be back in the real world. But then he remembered. What happened to that man? Gelivana helped Beliath to his feet. Which man? The one in chains. Gelivana peered over to the lifeless, captive man's body. He has returned to Gaia. Beliath squeezed his fist tight. The cruel man had returned as well, back to his place in front of the crowd. With a murderous fury, he projected his voice across the crowd. "There is a traitor! A mind-walker among us!" The cruel man began shoving his way through the crowd. Kala urged the group. "I think he's looking for Beliath." Alaketh waved for the crew to follow. "That's our cue. Come. I thought of a way out." The party managed to squeeze through the crowd before the cruel man could reach them. Alaketh continued guiding the party to a quiet part of the city. "Through here." Alaketh produced his staff, a magnificent piece carved from oak and crowned with a pulsating ruby at the top. He pointed it towards the bottom of a stone wall and whispered a mysterious incantation under his breath. The stone at the bottom of the wall began to warp and then crumble, creating a sizable hole. The party climbed through the city wall and rushed to safety in the green wilderness beyond. As soon as they had a moment's rest, Gelivana asked Beliath, "What happened to you?" Before Beliath could answer, Alaketh spoke. "It seems the boy's powers are awakening. He mind-walked without any training or even a pledge to the dream god." Gelivana pondered for a moment and then said, "But this has never happened before. Why now?" Alaketh stroked his chin. "I'm not entirely sure. Perhaps because a person's life was at stake, or perhaps because he got close to a divine magic. In either case, we can be grateful that the boy felt compelled to do good." Beliath stared into the dense undergrowth, a knot of unease tightening in his stomach. I couldn't control it," he mumbled, his voice barely a whisper. "I could have hurt someone." Alaketh placed a reassuring hand on Beliath's shoulder. "No more than that dreamer was going to hurt the Dawnkeeper anyways," he said firmly. "You'll learn, child, in time. Control will come." The nearby brush suddenly began to rustle, and out came Besti and Gora, walking side by side. "You did it! Well done!" Gora exclaimed. "Can't believe you actually rescued him and made it out of there with your hide still intact," Besti added. Beliath turned to Alaketh and Kala. "Tell me, where is my mother? I wish to see her." Alaketh's expression turned solemn. "She's in Senegoth, a village on the southern coast. It's a 10 days journey from here." Gelivana listened intently. "I can't be away from the forest that long," she said, her voice laced with sorrow. Beliath's heart sank. He hadn't spent a single day apart from Gelivana in those 10 years in the forest. A difficult decision loomed before him. Gora hooted, his teal eyes gleaming. "I will accompany them. I can be your eyes and ears in the human world." Beliath rushed to Gelivana, the knot of unease in his stomach slowly unwinding. "I have to go. I have to find her. I can't just leave her there." Gelivana's eyes held a well of unspoken emotions. "Remember what I taught you." "Don't worry, we'll protect him," Alaketh assured. With a cautious glance, Gelivana replied, "How can I know this to be true?" "Consider the fact that I just gave up my entire cover with the Dreamers to rescue him." Gelivana softly grunted. With a soft whistle, a massive black bear emerged from the nearby trees. She swung onto its back and quickly disappeared into the dense foliage. "She couldn't have left us with a few creatures to ride," Besti noted. Alaketh, turning back to the matter at hand, said, "We'll have to avoid the roads. Wild paths only. There's a fairy city a few days from here that may be able to help. Even if we're discovered there, we'll be well protected." Kala, ever the optimist, nudged Beliath playfully. "Well, young man," she said with a grin, "looks like you're in for an adventure."